All right, so Karsen, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for agreeing to meet with me and do a little interview. I'm sure it's going to help lots of buyers and sellers and even other realtors out there. Just want to ask you a little bit about your background in terms of... So Karsen, how long have you been doing photography for?
I've always been interested in photography as long as I can remember. When I was a really young kid, my mother got me this bright blue Fisher-Price camera, and I remember taking that with me everywhere and just taking pictures of everything. And but
I remember those cameras.
Yeah. But professionally, I was thinking about it, and my first gig was probably like 17 years ago. A friend of mine who is a photographer was supposed to shoot a wedding, and the day before he fell on a broken dock and broke his ribs.
Oh no.
So he called me and asked if I could help him out, carry his gear, be his second shooter at this wedding.
Oh wow.
And so I was like, sure, I'll gladly help you out. And I went and did all this, and it was nerve-wracking and exciting. And at the end of the night, he paid me, and I didn't expect it. I just thought I was going to help him. And so I was just totally into this. Like, wow, I didn't realize you could make money doing this. And,
doing something that you love.
Yeah,
and
so
that you're passionate about.
I started really getting into it about then, and shot a lot of portraits and worked my way up to shooting weddings, and worked as a press photographer for a while, and that was really fun and exciting too. Did some writing and reporting.
Oh wow.
And just decided to merge my photography interest with my interest in architecture, and got into real estate shooting and architectural photos.
Oh nice.
So
that's fantastic, and that's how you and I met. Was someone referred you, another real estate agent that I know, and they recommended you for my photography pictures, and I use you for all of my listings. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I appreciate your great work too.
Thanks.
So Karsen, as far as equipment goes, what, I could see that your lens is way different than the lens on my camera. What type of equipment do you need and why is it that a realtor just can't use their phone, or a really nice, I have a pretty nice camera that we're using to record this interview with. Why can't I just use that really nice camera to take pictures inside of a house? And why should a realtor pay you to use your professional equipment that you have? What's the difference?
So the main difference between your phone or a smaller point-and-shoot type camera would be that a professional camera allows you to interchange the lenses, which allows me to put on different sorry about that, wide-angle lenses or macro lenses or specialty lenses for whatever the occasion calls for. Another difference between this camera and some of the smaller pocketable cameras would be this is better in low light situations, which really can pull out the shadows in a dark room and really better capture the colors of a room. And I guess another difference would be that this has the ability to fire external flashes, and I can control it remotely. It's very useful.
Wow. Is that when you hold up that thing in your hand? Is that the external flashes that you're referring to?
Yeah.
I know you have he has a piece of equipment that I've never seen a photographer use before, and it's, I don't know, makes you feel like you're on stage in Hollywood or something. So it's kind of cool.
It's a big remote flash, and one good flash pop in a room can really bring out the true colors of a room and make it brighter, more inviting, feel cleaner.
Awesome.
So.
Very nice. Now, if, let's say I have a seller that I'm talking to, like for example, a for sale by owner. And, a for sale by owner will oftentimes, take their own pictures, and I might look at the photographs online that they have posted, and I can tell that they did not use a professional photographer. If I wanted to offer some tips, because I try my best to offer value, to folks, even if they want to try to sell their own home, okay, if you insist, but here's a couple of things you might want to try. What would you suggest somebody who insists on taking their own photos? What type of tips do you have for them? Like what's important, like decluttering, and I know that's probably the most obvious, but is there anything else that you could think of?
Well, definitely decluttering and a lot of people look past the cleaning of things like ceiling fans or countertops, appliances, things that are reflective, mirrors and windows.
Yeah.
The camera really tends to bring out smudges and dirtiness
Gotcha.
and that type of thing. And it can really make your home look dirtier than it appears in person. So just take a little time, clean up shiny surfaces, remove personal traces of items, photos from the walls, calendars. Calendars can make your home look dated. If you take photos in December and your listing goes into January,
Yes.
That's not necessarily a good thing for potential buyers to see.
Probably decoration too.
Decorations,
With that being
definitely,
said, Christmas
definitely.
decoration. if
Definitely
you're-
decorations,
Yeah.
anything like that. Signs of pets. Remove your cars from the driveway. Personal photos. I think I said. I actually have a whole list of tips on my
Oh, do
website.
you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So-
I'll have to share that.
Yeah, I could get you a copy
description.
or just look there.
I'll just share your website link.
Sure.
Now, ceiling fans, those should always be turned off, right? When you're taking photos, sometimes I see them, like you can see that they don't have the high shutter speed or whatever it's called, and you can see the fan in the photos, and it kind of distracts from the picture and what you're looking at.
Right. So ceiling fans, when they're on, to back up a little bit, when I shoot a typical room, I don't just take one photo. I will take one photo with the pop of light,
Okay.
another photo at a different shutter speed so that I can let in a little bit more natural light. Sometimes I'll take up to 5 different photos and blend those together so I can get the darker areas of the room to kind of match the brighter areas of the room so it all balances
Oh,
out.
really?
And when the fan is spinning and I have 5 different photographs that I'm trying to blend, you have many different
Oh.
blades appearing up there, and it looks strange. So
Yeah.
it's just easier overall to do it with the fan off.
Oh, wow. I never knew that that's what you did, that you took 5 different photos and made one photo.
Yeah, usually
That's pretty cool.
it's at least 3,
Okay.
and then up to 5 depending on if there's a very bright light at one end of the room and you want to capture like a pool setting in the background, that's an entirely different exposure than a dark room that may actually be adjacent to that window. So.
Oh, wow. That's pretty awesome. Good to know. All right. So, Karsen, as far as length of time, how long should a person, I'm sure it's going to depend on the size of the home.
Definitely.
You've done a variety of sizes of homes for me, I think anywhere from 700 square feet to 3,000 square feet. What should a person think about, like when I'm scheduling an appointment and I'm saying, hey, my photographer's going to be coming by, how long should they expect for you to be there? And how would we gauge that?
I'd say the typical session's about an hour on site.
Okay.
It could go up to 2 hours if it's obviously a larger home or a home with a lot of architectural details that need highlighting,
Yeah.
special faucets or pool features or
Right.
things like that, where I really would like to detail those shots for potential buyers to see. That could take extra time, so up to
Okay.
2 hours.
Up to 2 hours inside the home.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you do go on site within the community, like if there's a boat dock or a marina or something to highlight basketball courts, you will take the time out to go in the neighborhood and highlight those.
Yeah, definitely. Those are great selling points, and
Yeah.
they're necessary to be highlighted.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
and photographed.
Absolutely. This wasn't part of the questions, but I want to comment on it since they're here. You've got these fancy lighting, and I do have my ring light that you can't see in this interview. What is the difference between having just a ring light like this or this when you're doing photography?
So a ring light is great for video. It's a more steady pulse of light, but it cannot get as bright as a strobe light or a flash. There's one powerful burst of light that can actually fill an entire room, whereas this is more concentrated, not as bright, but more steady, more consistent light.
Okay, and you'll see this a lot when you're doing, I remember when my daughter would get pictures taken when she was little, this would be around, you wouldn't see them in the photos obviously, but they would use this for the lighting. Is
Yeah.
that typical, more so with portraits versus real estate? when you're using this type of lighting?
Both. I would say with a portrait session, they use studio strobes that are typically plugged in.
Okay.
And what I use are battery powered, but maybe not quite as powerful as a studio strobe can be.
Okay.
But I do have one big light that can really light up a large space.
Oh, really? Wow.
They just carry just in case.
Okay, that's good to know. Karsen, as far as real estate agents reaching out to you, I know that if there's a listing that a real estate agent has, they're going to seek out, most likely, they're not going to want to use their own equipment. They're going to want to use a professional photographer like Karsen. But as far as sellers go, have you ever had somebody who is selling their own home reach out to you directly instead of just it being when it's listed with an agent?
I have.
Have you?
It's not quite as frequent, but there have been a couple instances where a for sale by owner has reached out to me for.
Well, that's good. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Because I would say probably, I don't know, 90%. And if you're watching this and you're a realtor, you probably agree about 90% of the pictures that are for sale by owners do not have professional photography. And it's so unfortunate because the house is not featured the same way. So when you're called upon to take photos, how quickly do you typically have those pictures ready? How long does it take?
So, like we talked about, 1 to 2 hours on site, and then I spend about 1 to 2 hours back in my office editing the photos, preparing them for the MLS, and then the upload process and getting them ready to go to the agent.
So if needed, an agent can have their photos in 24 hours?
Yeah, my typical stated turnaround is 24 to 48 hours.
Okay.
If somebody needs them quicker, I will do everything I can to get them the photos faster. So
that's awesome.
I have turned around one job in 3 hours once.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That was a little nerve-wracking.
That's crazy,
but
yeah.
It went well. So.
That's awesome. So you said it takes you about 2 to 3 hours to do all the editing at home?
Yeah, 1 to 2 hours.
1 to 2 hours
Yeah.
for all the editing. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty. And do you use any kind of special software or tools that are not privy to other people, or is it?
No, it's all available to anybody. I use Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Lightroom.
Oh, okay, I've heard of those.
Adobe Raw.
Adobe is badass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have their pros and cons, but it's really the best thing to use. I think I've tried many different solutions and keep going back to them.
Yeah.
But
I've heard somebody that I knew most recently was speaking about Adobe products, and so that's good to know.
Yeah.
All right. So another question that I have, Karsen, is in regards to drone photography. Drone photography is such a great tool for realtors to have for their listings to be able to take aerial footage, especially when it's a big property. I usually tell in my listing presentation, I include it in there, but I say that it's something that we're going to talk about later in terms of our listing appointment, because I don't do it for every single listing that I have. But definitely for land, which you've done it for me for land. Tell me about your drone. How did you get into that? And that requires you have to take classes, right? And you have a pilot's license. What does that process all look like?
Yeah, so you do need to be licensed. It's called a Part 107 license through the FAA, and that allows you to fly commercially and take photographs. Really, there's no better way to really highlight a property to, like you said, for land, or to show a pool or the condition of a roof, or even things in the area, points of interest, whether you're close to a restaurant, or close to a lake, or parks, recreational facilities, things like that. A partial aerial view of the home showing the points of interest in the background is really, there's really no other way to do it.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Do you have to have special permission? Is every home able to have drone photography, at least in our area here in Polk County, let's say, for example, no matter where it was, or is it certain areas are kind of off limits? What's the deal on that?
There are no fly zones.
Okay.
There are applications you can go on before you fly, and it'll show you whether or not you're in a no-fly zone.
Okay.
But there are certain areas that are no-fly zones. You can apply for a waiver to fly in those areas, and sometimes the waivers are not granted depending on how close you are to an airport or other certain areas of government protection, things like
Gotcha.
that. Downtown areas are sometimes off limits. So
Okay. What about in HOAs, like the communities themselves? Are they typically?
it's not really related to the HOA as
No,
much as
okay.
it is the airspace above it. So,
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So as far as flying a drone and having some restricted air spaces, if a realtor has a listing and it's a listing with that features a really beautiful piece of property, before promising their seller that they can get some drone pictures and including that information on a listing appointment, is there any way at all for a listing agent to find out prior to that appointment as far as no-fly zones go?
There's several apps that you could download on your phone. I would just say go to your app store and look for No Fly Zone on the app store.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
there's several. I actually use 2 different ones. I should have.
Oh, that's
looked up
okay.
but I use 2 different ones just to double check, because sometimes you may be on the border of a no-fly zone, and it's useful information to know. But there are alternatives to a drone if you are in a no-fly zone.
Okay.
I do something called pole photography, and I have a very long fiberglass pole that extends way out, and I have a camera that goes on that,
Oh,
and I can
wow.
get 25 feet in the air
Oh, wow.
and take similar shots to what you would get from a drone without having to go through the restrictions, and it gives a really nice perspective on the house. You still get the top-down view of the roof, and without the liability of flying a drone. So.
Wow, that's awesome. Now, if an agent or an up for sale by owner, a seller wants to find out about pricing, do you list that on your website? Is there like a range depending on size of house and what kind of services, or is it something they would call you for directly and have a conversation with you about?
I list pricing on my site.
You do? Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So once I list your website in the description, they'll be able to access your prices. And so then as far as drone photography, if you don't mind sharing, because I know that it's a little bit more expensive than just getting your regular photos that you do for the interior. What is the prices for the drone footage?
So regarding the drone, it's $100 add-on in addition to the home shoot, whatever package someone chooses for their home.
Awesome.
So part of that is I have to pay for insurance for every flight, and the cost of the drone if anything were to happen. So it's not just a 5-minute thing to fly up. There are a lot of liability concerns. So that's
Absolutely.
It's not just,
Now, is there, for folks watching, we are located in Polk County, Florida. We are both in Lakeland, Florida, but I know that you've gone out kind of like 30-minute, I think you've even drove like 50 minutes for my listing in Claremont. How far do you, what radius do you cover? Do you do Polk County, Lake County, Hillsborough? How far out do you go? Do you try to stick with Polk County?
I typically stick in Polk County, but I have done jobs Hernando County, Pasco, Hillsborough, Lake, and Polk. So basically,
kind of this Tampa Bay area.
Central Florida. I'll go
Okay.
out if it's an interesting job, or it's a client that I.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if I had a listing in, say, Winter Garden, which I might soon, you'd be willing to go out to Winter Garden
Sure,
for
I
me.
love Winter Garden.
So Plain Street, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that a great spot? All right. Well, anything else that you can think of that I didn't cover in our chats?
No, not really. Just I think you've covered a lot of it, and just wanted to thank you.
Yeah, of course. No, thank you for doing this. I do appreciate it, and definitely, next time if we need to do another interview, I'll call you. One thing I want to mention to the folks watching is the website for Karsen will be in the description, and then also the apps that he is recommending for real estate agents to use. I will have those in the description as well. And I would imagine, just a thought that came to mind, the location that the person is using it. For example, if a real estate agent in California is using that app. It's not specific to Florida or anything.
No, there's geolocation abilities
Perfect.
in the app, and you can actually just put the address in, and it will show you whether that address is in a no-fly zone or not. So,
Awesome, perfect. All right, well, there you have it. And again, thank you, Karsen. I do appreciate it.
thank you.
All right.